Next up, Dalton, is a really, really interesting Big Ten team heading into 2024. That is the Nebraska Cornhuskers heading into year 2 under Matt Rule. They actually had their best record in 4 years in their first year under Matt Rule, but only 5-7. They still missed a bowl game. So Nebraska, Dalton, has now had a losing record in 7 consecutive seasons. The last time that they've had a dry spell as bad as that was the 1940s, man. So the biggest culprit, of course, was the offense, which was the 4th worst in terms of EPA per play. But there is some really intriguing stuff on that side of the ball because of one Dylan Raiola, who we'll talk about in just a second. But I think that could explain their high win total. They have a 7.5 win total right now. Again, they haven't had a winning season in like 8 years, but yet their win total is 7.5 because I think they're really buying into this kid right now. He's actually the first 5-star they've gotten into that program in 19 years and the highest rated quarterback they've ever brought in to Nebraska as well. I think their biggest strength, though, is actually on the other side of the ball, and it's their defense. The only reason they found any sort of success in 2023 was the defense. They had the 9th best defense in terms of EPA per play in the Power 5. So top 10 defense in the Power 5 in terms of EPA per play. And they brought back 9 of the 13 defensive players who played at least 300 snaps last year. And they also added to that defense as well with Syracuse edge defender Stephon Thompson coming in, St. Francis cornerback Bly Hill coming in as well. They both should figure into that lineup a lot. The weakness, Dalton, might not be a weakness considering how good he could be, but there's a lot of freaking pressure on a 19-year-old quarterback's shoulders right now because Dylan Raiola, mentioned it before, 5-star quarterback coming in, the number 3 quarterback coming in out of high school, but he will be starting immediately as a true freshman for Nebraska and has a lot of pressure on him as a true freshman at Nebraska, with his dad being a former All-American center at Nebraska and had a great career in the NFL with the Lions. His uncle is actually the offensive line coach for Nebraska right now as well, so he got some family ties there. Nebraska last year was the 3rd lowest graded offense in the Power 5 on passing plays. I think they could be better with Dylan Raiola, but man, dude, this guy just went to a senior prom a few months ago. It's a lot of pressure on a 19-year-old shoulders is all I'm going to say. So they really need him to hit the ground running, or else this offense could once again tank its season like it did last year. Tell me more about Raiola, Dawn. I know you're not going to watch any of the high school tape, like you said, but when you watched him in the spring game, what did you see out of the former 5-star recruit?
I think actually what jumped out to most, look, so we don't grade the spring games or anything like that, so you kind of have to feel it out. But I think he looks poised for a kid like that, right? I think you can tell he's got like an NFL upbringing, and he's just like kind of, it feels like he's ready for the moment. Like there was just such like a calm and cool. And I know it's a spring game, it's a loose environment, but let's be real. Like even in Nebraska's spring game, that's in front of a lot of people in that stadium. Like there's nothing else to do in Lincoln, Nebraska, other than just go to the Nebraska spring game, right? Like that's just what they're gonna do. And he just looked so poised and so calm. Like I think watching that made me feel like, okay, it's a true freshman. Maybe there's some road environments if you have to go to the Big House or Columbus or Happy Valley or wherever, where it's going to be like, okay, this is kind of big now. But the moment didn't look too big for him. And he was clearly just in command, right? Threw a couple of really nice touchdown passes, one to the corner, one to the post, just really nice. You can tell he's got arm talent. He can throw off platform a little bit, showed really nice touch on those throws. Like, I think you've got a guy, I think at least mentally looks like he's prepared for the moment. Like nothing's going to be too big for him. And I think the one thing you have to remember, Max, is their passing game was horrendous last year. I think they were actually last in the Power 5 in passing grade, if I'm not wrong on that, or somewhere near the bottom. I thought they were dead last. Pretty much anything Raiola does right here is going to be an improvement because they could run the ball and they could play defense. They got a huge defensive line. Nebraska's got some real size. And keep in mind, too, Matt Rule in his second year, maybe not with Carolina, but at Temple and at Baylor usually makes a big jump, right? So I think there's a lot brewing here, but Raiola's talent is big time. Obviously, look, it's hard to find any flaws because the flaw is he hasn't played in college yet, right? So you're playing high school kids to Caleb Downs or Travis Hunter or whoever else is on his schedule. But Raiola's, I think, got all the talent. I was really impressed by his poise in the spring game.
He's like a developed guy physically too, right? He's 6'3", 220. Like he's got like almost an NFL-ready body, it looks like, when you watch him out there as well. So yeah, I'm excited for this kid, man. I think he could be a really, really good quarterback for for Nebraska. And actually, Dom, they had the second worst passing grade in the Power 5, only ahead of Iowa, which is not too surprising considering the Hawkeyes.
Of course, I forgot the Hawkeyes. Of course I did.
That's a trademark for Iowa. How dare you, Dalton, honestly. But let's go to the offensive player spotlight. A guy who's really going to help out a lot with Dylan Raiola. That is Jamal Banks, the transfer receiver they got from Wake Forest. He was Wake Forest's top receiver in 2023. He has over 600 yards in each of the last 2 years, capable of making some unreal catches, too, due to his strong hands and 6'4" frame as well. 23 contested catches over the last 2 years, tied for 5th among Power 5 receivers. Only a 1.9% drop rate as well, which was 7th over the last 2 years among Power 5 receivers. He's a really reliable, big target for Dylan Raiola, which is great for him, right? Where maybe as a true freshman, he has some accuracy issues. The good thing about Jamal Banks is he's a big target and does not drop a lot and can make some great highlight reel catches as well. So that could be a really, really fun player for Dylan Raiola to have in that offense, and a really valuable player for Dylan Raiola in that offense as well. And he should be the number one receiver for Dylan Raiola and Nebraska next year.
Totally agree. And as that offense rounds into shape, look, Nebraska's they've got a pretty good defense already, and they got a really big defensive line. They can stop the run, but maybe their best player is at cornerback in Tommy Hill, and he finished in the top 20 last year in overall grade and coverage grade. And I'll tell you what, he's really, really good at one-on-one situations and single coverage. An 87.1 coverage grade in single coverage. That was 5th among all Power 5 corners. This is a guy who may be moving up boards. He didn't make the top 10 in our cornerback rankings, but he probably wasn't far from it. To be honest, you could argue him into the top 15. This is a guy who's really the anchor of their secondary, and you know what? They've got a pretty good pass rush with a lot of size, and if they want to play man coverage, this is the guy to do it with. Tommy Hill's a really good football player on the outside.
I'm a huge fan of his game, honestly, man. So give me the bottom line, Nebraska, Dalton. Obviously, you mentioned before how they've had 7 straight losing seasons. Will it be 8 straight? Or will Dylan Raiola be the savior of this program that so many people are hyping him up to be? What are you expecting out of the Cornhuskers in 2024?
I don't know if you can throw the savior label on them yet. That might be a little high, but no, I think the optimism is warranted. I really do. I think they showed some real flashes last year. They got themselves were very close to making a bowl game last year on a couple of occasions. They gave Colorado problems early in their game, early in the year. Iowa, they took to overtime and easily could have won that game. I believe it ended up 13-10. No, they were close to breaking that streak last year, and I think they're going to do it this year. It just comes down to Raiola's poise. If that sticks, I think if what we saw in the spring game sticks, and again, you get in these road games or you get wherever where, you're in these environments and it's big and you're 18, 19 years old and everything like that. But I think he seems well prepared for it, right? And if he is, they've got enough run game. They've got enough defense. That streak should break, right? I don't think they're going to break into oh my God, they're at the top. They're competing with Ohio State. But this might finally be, we make the joke all the time, Texas is back. Maybe Nebraska starts getting back here this year. Because again, Matt Rule, you look at his previous stops at Temple, at Baylor, year 2 is the year. Year 1, he uses to rebuild it, find talent, do what he wants. Year 2 is the year where it's okay, now we're a program. We're a real program. We're going to win ball games. So I think it's completely warranted, the optimism that they should end that streak that you're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it all comes down to Dylan Raiola, man. If he's the real deal, they're going to their first bowl game since 2016. If he looks any bit like a true freshman, they could fall below 500 again, I think. I have really good optimism, though, they won't fall below 500, even if he isn't great, because I think that defense is really good. But I do think that it's a lot of pressure on that kid's shoulders. And it's a lot of pressure on a true freshman, man, but it's lucky that you have a 5-star recruit doing it, right? It's better than having another guy.
Is there a world, real quick, where, so let's say we're kind of going with the top 3 quarterbacks in the Big Ten are obviously something like Gabriel, Aller, and probably Will Howard, right? If I'm missing anybody. Is there a world where right this year Raiola is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the Big Ten?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think the other guys, I'm looking at our quarterback ratings right now, Tyler Van Dyke, Miller Moss is the other 2 guys in our top 5. I think Raiola could easily jump either of those 2 and get in the top 5. So, yeah, I think that's certainly possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just he is just so darn young, right? It's just, but that pedigree and something about just the way he carried himself, I was like, you know what, that might
Are you?
That might just work.
Are you becoming a 5-star guy, Dalton? Are you joining the dark side here?
No, just for a moment. Just for a moment. If he comes, actually, you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think it's week 2 when they're playing Colorado and Shedeur Sanders again. To see them go head to head, we'll see if Nebraska can pull it off this time.
All right, so you heard it right there. Dalton Wasserman becoming a 5-star recruit guy like myself. I love it, man. Finally getting over to the dark side of watching 16-year-olds play football out there. That's what I'd like to do with my weekends. But that's what we got for the Nebraska Cornhuskers previewing their 2024 season. Again, we're doing this for every single one of the 70 Power 5 teams. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single one of them.